Happy Monday. Welcome to our monthly Goleta Wrap meeting, where we discuss impacts of homelessness throughout the city of Goleta. And this is our monthly meeting focused on hearing from the community. So we're glad you're here on your lunch break. We are going to start with just a few general announcements. As usual, I'm Landon Rank with SB Act, joined in partnership with the city of Goleta. We have Chuck Flax, Homeless Services Coordinator, and Councilmember Stuart Kasdan. So thank you all for being here.
And Joanne Plummer, our neighborhood services director.
Thank you. Hi, Joanne.
Hi, thanks, Chuck.
Joanne.
The only upcoming date I wanted to mention for today was just the Goleta State of the City event. I know many of us will be there representing, and you'll have a chance to, we can just talk more in depth about homelessness issues. But that'll be coming up on Tuesday, the 8th at 5 p.m. at the Goleta Community Center. So I encourage you to come out, chat with us. I don't have on here the date for the next community concerns meeting. I'm strategizing with Chuck different ways to try and engage more, especially businesses. And so there's a good chance that we will continue on the fourth Monday of the month, but just put that as a TBD right now until we confirm. I'll confirm that within the next 2 weeks. I wanted to briefly just mention several of you were able to attend on March 10th, but the City of Goleta is participating along with the cities of Santa Barbara and Carpinteria in this South County-wide coalition to address homelessness throughout the whole region. We know that people move from one region to another, so it's important that we're really coordinating all of our efforts. And so this Act on Homelessness Collaborative for the South County is facilitated by SB Act as kind of the hub organization, and you can see just all the different partners that sit on the steering committee for that. And at this March 10th event we had 2 weeks ago, we did a launch of our newest 3-year strategic plan. So we have four main goals, kind of, I'm not going to go into too much depth, but really trying to address the prevention side of homelessness, trying to address assisting those who are currently experiencing homelessness, and specifically trying to help those with the most significant mental health and substance use challenges off the streets. Number three is trying to help those who become housed to retain their housing. And then number four is to try and shift public perceptions around homelessness. We know that if we want to advocate for solutions, we need community support. And so to do that, we have to really help bring the community along. And also chicken and egg, we also have to do what the community needs us to do in order for their perceptions to change. So it's really cyclical there. Go ahead, Councilmember Kasdan.
Yeah, I guess I would urge you to reframe how Goal 4 is presented. And that is that your goal is to give people accurate facts about homelessness and appropriate information that gives a full picture of the circumstances, not to change their attitudes. Their attitudes will hopefully follow as they learn more, as they understand the situation better. But you're not trying to change their attitude because you want them to take on you're not a politician. You're not, if they, the goal is if they truly understand who is homeless, what are the challenges, all those things, they will improve their attitude. But your goal is not improving their attitude. That's how I would characterize it. It looks too
No,
propagandistic right now.
I could see that. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So anyway, this is something we'll be working on all the way through the end of 2027. And there will be different ways to get involved with each of these goals. So please do reach out to us if you're interested, but we'll be sharing updates as we continue progressing.
And I do think, by the way, that people that there are certain on that fourth one, there's certain standard tropes in a sense that people have,
Right.
that the homeless people are coming from outside the area, that they are primarily indigent, and they're just living off welfare or home or begging. There's all these ideas that people have that by providing accurate information, it to know these are your neighbors, for instance. These are people who lost jobs or, had health insurance issues or, all those things are really valuable things for people to get a better sense of what the problem is, how it can affect people they care about. Now
Mhm.
that, you and your family are not invulnerable to these circumstances and so on.
No, I think that's fair. And for number four, we're going to be using a survey tool that was published by Clemson University. And it isn't just measuring how do you feel about people who are experiencing homelessness. It really is also asking, like, what do you know about solutions to homelessness? What do you think are the causes of homelessness? So some of it is really understanding, like you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, your goal would be, to me, gathering the accurate information and dispersing it in order so that people have an accurate understanding of the problem and the causes and the solutions.
Right.
Okay.
Nope, that's accurate. Um, Yeah, so the other main announcement was just a reminder, we're still in warming center season through next Monday, before it officially ends. And though I don't see any inclement weather on the horizon right now, I did just want to give a chance. I don't know if anyone from Good Samaritan or the county is able to share about how the warming shelters have gone over the last 2 weeks. And there may not be anyone on the call, but Well, seeing no one, I want to continue to encourage everyone. If you don't already have the hotline number saved, please save it. You can email that FWC at email address at the bottom to join the list so that you can get updates when the warming centers are activated. But again, it's only one more week before the season will be ending for the year.
Down a bit. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So with that, I want to go ahead and turn it over to Chuck just to share updates from the city of Goleta, including probably some updates from the most recent Goleta Homelessness Issue Standing Committee meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Landon. I could start with the standing committee. It was a very rich policy discussion. There was no official actions taken at the committee. We actually anticipated a larger community response to our encampment policies, and we actually didn't have that many people show up. But essentially, there were kind of three
He's in
areas
there
that.
watching videos.
Oh, Cora, can you mute? And so there were three areas that we talked about. The first was a kind of a prep for the budget discussion and our work plan and what we're going to be focusing on. And really, we're primarily going to be doing much of the same going forward in the short term. Councilman Casson shaking his head. The charge from Councilman Casson is to do something different that makes a difference. We can discuss further, what that looks like, but we're not doing any major course corrections other than really focusing as much as possible on housing solutions for our folks. And also, that was one of the primary discussions. We spent a fair amount of time talking about people living in vehicles. And I know there are some people on this call who would like to discuss that further, and we will. And we talked about the struggles and the difficulties with dealing with that. So the outcome of the meeting was a charge to staff to make a significant change in our safe parking ordinance to allow for an expansion of safe parking in Goleta. And I'm aware already of one lot that is in process that we're actually going to approve under the old system. But the future is that there should be a more streamlined system to getting safe parking in place. And then the third thing we talked about, or not in that order, I think safe parking was the last thing. The second thing we talked about was our encampment policy. And that was one where we decided to maintain the status quo. As people might be aware, there's a lot of pressure on cities and counties around the state to get tougher on people experiencing homelessness. And the mandate from Councilman Kasdan and Mayor Perotti was to not criminalize homelessness, but to do the work that many of you on this call are doing, which is to continue compassionate, supportive outreach, but also to continue our enforcement efforts when people are on private property or endangering the community. just to remind people, we have two areas that the city has designated as high fire, and that's the Elwood Mesa area, as you can see behind me, and the Lake Los Caneros area, where we are not giving people warnings. We're moving them along. But everywhere else, we're trying our best to work with people where they are, continuing the work of compassionately addressing their concerns, developing relationships, and ideally moving people into shelter and housing. Councilman Kesta, did you want to comment on the meeting further than I did?
I'm always game for chattering on. So I guess I would say that for any, folks who advocate, let's just get tough, that using criminal enforcement doesn't make the homeless people just disappear. They just go somewhere else. And the question is, how do we get them to places like housing? How do we get them places that make sense? Just moving them down the street to some other area isn't going to be helpful. And so there are certain areas where, because of fire risk, they shouldn't be, it's too much of a danger to the community. But there are other areas, to the extent that we can get them into housing, we can get them into shelters, that makes sense and benefits everyone. And in a sense, it's the same situation with safe parking, that there are cars that are right now parked on the streets that we don't want them parked on the streets, but where we want them parked are in these safe parking locations. That makes sense, that we can provide all the amenities they need, bathroom, showers, we can provide services and other things to make it attractive. And our goal is to both expand the number of locations, but also to make them more appealing to people, so that when we go and say, we want you not to park on this street, but instead to park and say, hey, go to the safe parking, that they don't find that they're willing to do it. And so where we've had in the past a 7 a.m. departure time, we're going to look to make that more flexible so it's less onerous to be in a safe parking location. So how do we get them, encourage them to go to those locations? The problem with the enforcement sort of approach is it's really hard to know if somebody's sleeping in their car, number one. And number two, having them move, 50 feet every, 24 hours, is that really, are we accomplishing too much, making them move down the street? So anyway, so as far as the budget goes, we did see a big expansion, what appears to be a big expansion in the number of vehicular homeless. And accordingly, is there an ability to impact that, to direct more resources to where the problems are? And if we know we have a big issue there, well, how do we use the limited budget that we have to have the biggest impact? And that would be my hope.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Councilman. And Lennon, if you let me share, I'll give a report on our stats. One of the things, thank you. One of the things that we've done very well, and it's a tribute to all the people on this call. So just for some of you who may not be completely familiar with what's going on in Goleta, on this call, we have represented an organization that the city of Goleta is directly funding, that's CityNet. But we also have two different Good Samaritan outreach teams who will give reports later in the call. And then we also have the New Beginnings, both safe parking program and the encampment relief program, who are doing outreach in the city of Goleta. So we, for a city of our size, we actually are very amply resourced in terms of our ability to connect with homeless people. And what that means is that we know where people are. We have them on the map. We know what many of their needs are. We're connecting them with services in the field. We're getting them into shelter. And we're also housing people. So if you can see this chart, this is exactly a year or 13 months worth of data on our progress of housing people. That's the orange line. And people coming in, that's the blue line, or people newly identified into the homeless system. And what this, I mean, the bottom line of this slide is that we're not that far off from housing almost everybody that we're identifying, or not, I shouldn't say it's one to one. We're housing people at the same rate as we are identifying them. I mean, it looks, the part of this is the scale. It looks, this difference between 4 and 35 looks enormous. And maybe I should change the scale so that they're a little closer together. But the bottom line is, we're within just a handful of people at the end of a year. We have a few more people that are in the system versus how many people are being housed. And that's actually going to continue for the next, number of years. We are seeing there are two projects that are significant, Heritage Ridge and Patterson Point or Patterson Loft. I can't remember which one it is, that are specifically targeted for very low income people. And in the case of Patterson Lofts, they are specifically for people experiencing homelessness. That's going to be 35 more units. So, we're not doing that badly in terms of housing people, and we're not, and we're looking at some significant increases within the next 2 to 3 years. Just a sense of who are homeless. So we've identified 157 people as of January, February. Of these, 58, with a significant number, are seniors, 55 plus. 6 are transitional age youth, and I think that number is actually a little low. And then 2 are veterans, and I'm really hoping that within the next few months we reach a point where I would report 0 veterans in Goleta experiencing homelessness. Councilman Kesson, I'll get to you after I get through this, and then it's just the last bit. Just a sense of the last quarter or so in terms of how we're doing. These numbers currently are trending in a good direction. And part of that is that I know firsthand that many of you have had successful shelter placements. And then out of shelter, we've had quite a bit of people moving into housing. So we're seeing a decrease overall in the number of people homeless in Goleta. We still have a long way to go, obviously. And we'll see what the point in time count shows. I'm hoping that it'll be fairly consistent with what I'm reporting. But I think the work that we're doing is making a difference. Councilman Caston. You're on mute if you're talking.
Thanks. I guess I'm confused because we at various times receive or see different numbers. And the last numbers that we saw in the homeless committee had this massive upsurge of vehicular homeless.
Yeah, I've been trying to explain that to you. So that number is not, that's not a verifiable number. So and the reason why is, so technically people living in their vehicles are homeless, according to HUD, according to a definition of what homelessness is. However, and Cora could back me up on this, she can explain it as well. We've done a significant amount of work trying to get people living in their vehicles to take advantage of homeless services. And the vast majority, so roughly 200 vehicles were counted by New Beginnings when they did a census of people living in their vehicles. This was as part of the encampment relief grant that the city or the county of Santa Barbara received. They did a census in Goleta, and it was roughly 200 vehicles with people living in them. However, only of those 200, only about 50 or so have identified themselves as homeless. They've said, yes, I'm homeless, to the organizations that are outreaching to them. For the rest of the people, we don't have a relationship with them. They've expressed no interest. Many of them are in vehicles that cost upward of $50,000, $60,000, $100,000. We can't force people who are living in their vehicles to take advantage of homeless services.
That might be true, but that means we still need a strategy on how to deal with it, because they're still parked on the street and they're still pissing people off where they are. So we can't pretend they don't exist and just wipe them out of our statistics. They're there. Now, it might mean
they are not there as homeless people.
They are there by HUD's definition. They're homeless people. And so if they are parked on the street and living in their vehicle, we have to have some sort of strategy. Maybe the strategy is that that we actually do enforcement. Maybe that's our strategy, and say, go to safe parking or we'll give you a ticket. But we need to acknowledge that they're there. We can't just wipe them out of our statistics and pretend they're not
I
cars
can't
parked on the street.
verify, other than the count that was done 6 months ago. I can't verify people being homeless unless they identify themselves as homeless. So we don't have the resources to do a constant monitoring of people
Understood.
that.
We can't pretend that our homeless numbers are 100 less than they are. That of the numbers of people who are parked on the street, who are, if they are indeed causing all of the problems, that we have to at least recognize that this is part of the impacts in the community. And if indeed we think that they are, like, for instance, earlier, we had the issue of RVs, and we thought some of them were parking near Gersh Park because there was a website that said this was a good place to stay, and they're just passing through. We reacted. We put up the sign to try, and I don't know if we posted, but we tried to make a point of don't come here. So if it isn't a homeless, offering services and so forth, I don't know who they are, but we can't just eliminate them from our stats. There's people living on the street in vehicles, and they are part of our issue, part of our problem. Okay. And if you want to designate it as we don't have information about these, that they've refused services, etc., that's fine.
Okay.
You can characterize it as you see appropriate, but we don't just exclude them from.
I hear what you're saying, and I had that number in the presentation to council, but I now have learned that it's been quite a while since we've counted them actually. So if I keep presenting the 200 number, I'm misleading the public as to what our total is. So what I've asked New Beginnings to do, and I'm not putting Cora on the hot seat here, I've sent a letter to the New Beginnings leadership. It said, can you please update the Fulcrum statistics? When I have updated statistics, I'll present them. But I don't feel particularly comfortable in public forums saying we have 200 vehicles on the street, because I don't know that that's true. We definitely have a number of vehicles on the street. 37 currently are verifiable.
There's a huge difference.
And actually, Chuck, you're right. We are actively trying to work on the Fulcrum numbers as well. And we are, even though people aren't necessarily interested right now in working with safe parking, that doesn't mean we stop trying. So we are actively out there, and we will continually, try to make contact with these people and try to get them enrolled in our program. But again, it is something that we just can't force people to do if they're not interested. However, I did like what you had said earlier, Congressman, about having more places for these people to go during, during the day. That would be amazing. Even at nighttime. And you also mentioned showers, which, none of our lots currently offer showers, but that would be amazing if you actually could produce something like that as well. But we are always working and trying to make contact with the people that are living in their vehicles.
And what I'll add to that, Councilman Cassidy, is that this is a problem that extends beyond traditional homeless services. So you're identifying, because of your constituents and your own personal observations, and something we've talked about fairly extensively, you and I, that this problem of people moving into vehicles and living on the streets is a very different problem than encampments or full shelters, or it's clearly a problem of affordable housing, of people not having an alternative. And so at the Homeless Issues Standing Committee meeting, we did discuss, we even loosely discussed the possibility of creating incentives for commercial property owners to possibly create, RV parks or safe parking sites that aren't necessarily with robust homeless services, but would just have basic amenities or the ability to, change their situation. We lost the councilman.
No, I'm here.
Oh, there he is. Okay, so we have a couple people from the public, I think, who specifically wanted to talk about this topic. Landon, did you want to?
Yeah, why don't we
Yeah.
go to Randy and then we'll go to Liz?
Yeah, whoever received the $8 million about a year ago, didn't they, didn't their contract have any sort of stipulation for communicating or reporting? I mean, who is actually responsible for explaining how the $8 million is or has been spent?
So that's a bigger question than the city of Goleta, Randy. The money went to the county of Santa Barbara, and then a portion of that also went to the city of Santa Barbara.
Right.
So there are New Beginnings is the contracted agency to run that contract, and on a monthly basis, I'm a member of a committee that meets with them to oversee the expenditures of that. If you'd like to email me, I can talk to them about getting you a report on how they're doing. They're doing very well, and I'm happy to do that. So just email me and remind me, and I can get you the statistics on how they're doing.
Would it help for someone that represents them to come and sort of report to the group at some point?
Yes, absolutely. We can make that happen. Landon, if you can make a note of that, we can invite somebody from New Beginnings to come and report on their status.
Thank you.
And then Liz.
Liz.
So I'll speak briefly to the conversation that was just being had about the data that Randy just asked. I administered that grant for the city of Santa Barbara for several months before I switched jobs, and I can tell you that there is significant amount of data that New Beginnings is able to provide in terms of number of engagements with people, regardless of whether they identify or homeless is not. They do document that kind of information at in Fulcrum. So you're able to see how many times they visited a particular vehicle. So yeah, when I work with them in that steering committee, I work with Chuck on that steering committee. They're really good at reporting all kinds of data on the work that they're doing, and I can tell you that they do amazing work. And yeah, just because a person says no once, twice, three times doesn't mean that New Beginnings is going to be like, well, they said no five times, we're going to stop. They keep going, and sometimes the person just goes, I don't want your help, I'm going to relocate. Sometimes that is what happens. Sometimes they do say, okay, I trust you now, I am willing to accept your service. So it is a long process. I did want to speak as a resident, and that's what I came here primarily on, is that the issue with people living in their cars or people that are camping or whatever, at least for me as a resident, it isn't necessarily that they're there. It's the impacts of the neighborhood and behavior. And I would have the same concerns as a resident, whether the person was housed or unhoused. And I'm talking about noise or trash or behavior or I've seen people leave large amounts of trash in their car. They have, I've had people screaming outside their cars where I've had to call the police. Those are all things that are not necessarily the scope of a service provider to address. That's the scope of the city and the county. If a person needs mental health services because they're out there screaming, that's their job to do it, to respond to that. A service provider could go out there and try to de-escalate a situation, but once, that it's beyond what a service provider can help. And sometimes people need mental health services, and those people need to be having those conversations with us, and be part of these conversations. But also, if there are excessively large vehicles, that are blocking streets in my neighborhood. Sometimes at night when guests are leaving, they're like, "There are so many cars here. I feel unsafe going to my car." Um, and there's nothing's happening. It's just a bunch of vans parked, which is disconcerting sometimes. But nothing's happening. It's just a bunch of cars, and it is unnerving, especially as a woman walking at night in even a safe neighborhood. Those are things the city can address in terms of making a neighborhood feel safer. Or if there's excessive trash being dumped, the city of Santa Barbara does have a dynamic code enforcement program where when we do have people dumping, leaving large items of trash around their vehicle, those are addressed by the city. And I think if those things go hand in hand with service provision, those outreach service workers that are out there trying to engage, I think you could do a good job of improving neighborhood perception of issues. So that was all I wanted to contribute. So thank you.
Thank you, Liz. And just if anybody on the call doesn't know this, for large items in the public right of way or shopping carts, we have a city assist program that people can report on. And I can speak from personal experience. When you report on them, things get taken care of within 24 hours. So we have a very responsive public works department. One of the areas that Liz didn't identify it specifically, but I'm aware of it because I'm a neighbor, is an area along Phelps where several vans and sometimes as many as 5 or 6 cars and sometimes rental trailer equipment and sometimes horse carriers are parked on Phelps in a way that seems surprising on a public street. When the council addressed this question in terms of large vehicles, we put signage up all along Phelps. And in general, people are obeying the signage more or less. I mean, there's some violators, but the part that's particularly troublesome right now is actually a part of this that the city can't enforce because it's coastal commission land. It's in the city limits, but it's managed by the coastal commission, and it's a bizarre reality. But we can't put up a sign without their permission, and the cost of putting up a sign is unbelievable in terms of we have to get, it's just the amount of regulations, the amount of time spent, staff effort, all of that is really quite astonishing. So my recommendation always to residents who have concerns about the behavior of people is to notify the sheriffs that you have these concerns. If someone's screaming, if someone is dumping trash, if someone is behaving badly. We also have pretty fast response from our deputies when people report things. I know that puts the onus on residents, and you feel like our city ought to be doing more. But some of these things are extremely complicated and expensive, and we can't be policing every area, unfortunately. So it's one of the limitations of our small city is enforcement. So I'm not saying all this to excuse your concerns, Liz. We've received a lot of requests for service from residents around the city on this issue. And our response is first to send new beginnings. Then if people and then continue to send new beginnings. And then if people are violating parking laws, to send law enforcement. And if people are in clear crisis or in need of additional services, to contact behavioral wellness. These are all things that I do on a regular basis, and I do it in partnership with many of the people on the call. So we have a system. We're trying to address these concerns, and I'm sorry, Liz, if you still feel unsafe in your neighborhood, it's unfortunate. Councilman Caston, go ahead.
Yeah, don't we still have an application though pending with the Coastal Commission to enable us to put the signs in? That it's a slow, tedious, drawn out process, but I thought we still have an application pending.
So I don't want to speak out of turn. There's a chain of command in the city of Goleta, but I will tell you that this issue has been investigated pretty thoroughly by our planning and environmental review department and our city attorney. And the current feeling amongst our staff is that the cost associated with placing 1 or 2 signs is prohibitive. That it just to even put together an application could cost well over $200,000. And so so we're concerned about costs. We're concerned about time and staff effort. That's not including staff time. So we're really, again, this is something that after this meeting, I will raise again with my director, Joanne, who's on the call, and we can see about whether we want to move forward. But the current determination is that the cost is prohibitive to do signs.
No, that certainly is expensive, but I guess I would wonder if there's some way of reaching out to state senator, assembly person or something that would enable us to reduce the burden of getting there, because it does seem crazy. that we're prevented from we're literally prevented from protecting the environment because the processing of this application is so costly.
Yeah.
It's like a caricature of the Coastal Commission's goal. So it would be, I don't know, it'd be I'd be interested in talking more about it to see if there are any options.
And I suggest bringing it up with our leadership, city leadership. I know you meet regularly with them.
Thanks.
Yeah.
See a hand from Randy.
Um, I just, the Coastal Commission, I think they should have a chapter in Catch 22 in any reissue of the book. But Greg Hart used to be on the Coastal Commission, and where I live, we've been talking to somebody in his office just having to do with illegal fishing in a lake, and the Coastal Commission, fining the Parker Foundation $1 million for and losing the suit, and for going in and trying to clean up. Instead, they got chastised for knocking down some plants. But that's a real briar patch dealing with them in experience. But anyway, Greg Hart used to be on the Coastal Commission, and maybe he has some insight or some avenue.
Anything else for Chuck? Really appreciate all this time you've been able to have for this discussion. All right. So seeing none, I'm going to turn it to our service providers to share some updates, and then we'll go to community members to hear if there's any other concerns or questions to raise. But why don't we start with Cora and the safe parking team? I'd love if you could share just general updates, but specifically about the Pacific Oaks neighborhood, as well as that area north of the city of Goleta on Cayo Real that the county and safe parking have been addressing together.
Sure. I do know that both of those areas that you had mentioned, Landon, are being regularly visited by our SURF program. I know that they are out there on a regular basis. They are continuing to enroll people in SURF that have been resistant before, in both of those areas. And then, of course, Safe Parking is doing its regular outreach as well. We've actually even housed a couple people, so that's always nice as well. I know Surf has housed people. I know our program has housed people. One in particular was a 75-year-old man that's been living in his vehicle for a couple of years, so that was really nice to have that happen. We got him into Gardens on Hope. So, we just continually are out there, and we're trying to make those connections and trying to get people enrolled. So I do know that the SURF program is actively engaged in targeting those two areas that you had mentioned.
And I
Thank you,
think we
Cora.
received a report, Landon, at the last Monday meeting from the county that they've restricted access to that part outside of Goleta on the 101 to some extent. I don't know what that means. I haven't visited it. It's kind of a difficult turn off the freeway to make. So yeah, but I do know that the county was planning on restricting access.
Yeah, I don't know, Cora, if you're able to speak to that. It sounded like that had reduced some of the activity there.
Yes, that is accurate. I too haven't actually been out there, but I can definitely check in and see with our SURF team what they've noticed.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, let's go to our CityNet team.
Hi, good afternoon. If no one knows me, my name's Ellen. I work with CityNet. Last week we got one person into La Posada, which was really exciting, and they have 2 job interviews today, which I think speaks to kind of the stability that shelter can provide. People want to work, but they just need a place to keep all their belongings and have like a place to come home at night. I'll be following up with them this week. We did outreach out to Glen Annie and Elwood Station Road with behavioral wellness to try to facilitate some enrollments there. Also trying to coordinate potential hedges entry this week. Right now, I'm also troubleshooting for a couple folks that are in sober living who are being exited with no plan. So we're just trying to figure something out for them. Overall, right now, housing is definitely difficult. They did the complete freeze on new Section 8 vouchers kind of indefinitely because of budget cuts. So that's a bummer. We have a lot of elderly people and disabled individuals who are on fixed income and cannot afford rent here, and a voucher is kind of their only avenue. Even trying to bolster their income, I can't afford rent here. Like I drive an hour every day to work because I can't afford Santa Barbara. So we're just trying to stay positive and see what we can make happen, especially for the elderly clients.
Yeah, thank you, Ellen. That is kind of the hard news from this last week is that we know that this is just going to keep growing the already very long waiting lists for these housing vouchers that some of the clients rely on. And so thank you for continuing forward, and we're just going to keep monitoring that. I don't know, Ellen, since you were at Elwood Station Road last week, do you have any updates on whether that that fence has been able to stay repaired, or if there's now a new hole in it?
I mean, the fence is huge. It looks like a Jurassic Park fence. But there's people
Yes.
residing in the area, so there's other ways in. It honestly just
Sure.
kind of makes our jobs a little bit more difficult. It's a lot longer walk to get to people, and bring them medical care and the nurses and stuff. But I mean, it hasn't impacted the encampments.
Okay.
So wait, you're saying that enormous fence that was put up isn't having any impact at all?
Well, it's having
It'll
an impact on the nearby residents. So it means that if people have to get in and out of their encampments, they now have to go a different way.
So
So
we're inconveniencing them.
Yes.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I know that teenagers go out there with little dirt bikes. I think that will probably cease from that end, but in terms of actual encampments, I've never seen fencing make a difference with encampments.
Well, thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
Let's go to the Good Samaritan Surf 2 team focused on waterways.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Rachel with Good Samaritan Shelter Surf 2. Last week, we spent time supporting the county posting encampments for clearings, trying to get the folks connected to services before quick response clears their camps. We were able to get one individual into shelter after securing the needed vaccinations and registration for their ESA, as well as 2 new intakes. The team did several Fulcrum updates, the main focus being at Atascadero, San Jose, San Antonio, and Maria Ignacio Creeks, as well as Goleta Beach. Fulcrum has been updated with detailed photos. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. And we know your team was very active during the rainstorms too, so appreciate your work. Cora did put an update in the chat, but just noting that area has been blocked, the area north of the city limits on Cayo Real. And so they're going to be going out to confirm sort of how that's impacted the area. And then let's hear from the Good Samaritan ARPA team.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jose Guzman with ARPA Outreach. Specific areas visited last week were Gersh Park, Stove Park, Alameda Park, Persian Park, Ortega Park. Number of clients engaged last week were 30. Number of new clients enrolled were 2. Number of clients placed in the shelter were 1, Hedges. We continue to pass out waters with our clients. We passed out over 30 waters, over 30 hygiene bags over last week. And we continue to give out essential things that we might have in stock in our vehicle, like socks, snacks. And then we also continue to support our clients in getting them document ready, giving them rights, Social Security, DMV, and anything like that. That's it for ARPA.
Thank you, Jose. And then Adriana, do you have any updates from Hedges House of Hope shelter that you want to share?
Hi, everyone. No, I do not have any updates. I'm currently still full.
All right, thank you. So we have a little bit of time left. Let's open it up for any other questions or concerns from community members. I'm not seeing any hands go up.
I see that Alejandra is here from 211. Did 211 want to make any kind of report? She may not be at her computer at the moment. And then Judy
Chuck,
Nason is often at this meeting. Judy, did you have any questions or comments?
maybe muted. I'm not sure if you're trying to talk,
Oh, there we
Judy.
go.
Go
No,
ahead.
I don't have any questions at this time.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Judy.
Chuck, do you have any other areas that you wanted to check in about?
I mean, for me, I really appreciate the robust discussion about vehicles. I have a lot of thoughts about how we can proceed on that. And it's something that I think we're going to be working on, extensively over the next few months. So I don't want people to feel sometimes when Councilman Caston and I talk, we sound like we're angry, and it's just a way of communicating it. He taps into my innate New Yorker, and I tap into his. So, um, so we're really, I think we both are very much on the same page, trying to figure out the right way to move forward. And so I don't want anybody to be concerned about that. And
I come with a parental advisory notice or something like that.
somebody, my wife always says to me about me and my dad that she said, "Why, if you're agreeing, why are you yelling?" In terms of additional sites, frankly, I mean, I know I say this every month, and I mean it every month, that the work that you all are doing is having tremendous impact. I've noticed a decrease in visible encampments. I know that we still have people out there. I've even noticed a decrease in panhandling. Like I was in the Target lot today and I didn't see anybody. So whatever y'all are doing, keep it up. And I know that we have great support from the community resource deputy. Connor Warden and I have frequent conversations. In fact, I'm going out with him tomorrow to look at some encampments. So thank you all.
Thank you, Chuck. I don't have anything else on my list right now either. So unless there are any other questions from the community, we can go ahead and end a few minutes early.
Thanks, everybody.
Say thank you as a resident now being on the other side. I'm always grateful for you guys, all the work that you guys all did for Chuck, Landon, all the service providers. Cora, I miss you.
Mary.
Yeah, Ellen, everybody. I just as a resident just want to express my gratitude for the work everybody does here. So I'll see you next month.
Yep. Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
Liz. Appreciate that. See you all at the State of the City on the 8th.
Yeah, come to that. It's fun.
All right, take care.
Thank you.